President of Barbados, Sir David Simmons, SC, former Chief Justice and Attorney General, and current Chair of the Law Reform Commission, members of the Judiciary, Mrs. Donabab Agard, SC, Director of Public Prosecutions of Barbados, members of the Judiciary, Miss Donna Brathwaite, SC, Miss Marcia Lougheed, Deputy Solicitors General of Barbados, Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies, Cayfield Campus, Professor Winston Moore, Deputy Principal of the campus, Professor Emerita Velma Newton, Miss Kay Williams, President of the Barbados Bar Association, Miss Liesl Weeks, Chair of the Council of Legal Education, Mr. Rommel Carter, Campus Registrar, Miss Lisa Aline, Campus Bursar. This evening's eminent honorees, the members of the University of the West Indies Faculty of Law graduating class of 1973. We're happy to see you particularly. The deans of the faculties of the campus, Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, the interim dean of the Faculty of Law, heads of departments and directors of institutes of the campus, members of the Barbados Bar Association, distinguished lecturers in law, Mr. Henderson Waith, Public Services Librarian, Mr. Michael Besson, the President of the Guild of Students, Mr. Timothy Roper, the President of the Law Society, members of the Executive of the Law Society, staff of the university, students, friends, well-wishers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Erskine Burke. I'm the Master of Ceremonies for this afternoon's proceedings. We welcome you to what is bound to be a most memorable occasion as we celebrate the 50th anniversary reunion celebrations together with our class of 1973. At this time in the program, I wish to welcome our dear Dean, Dr. Antonius R. Hippolyte, the Interim Dean of the Faculty of Law, to come and to officially welcome you.
Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Erskine Burke, Most Honorable James Mason, President of Barbados, Vice Chancellor and Principal Professor Professor Winston Moore, Campus Registrar, Mr. Rommel Carter, Campus Bursar, Miss Lisa Allen, Dean of the Faculty, the Class of 1973, members of the Head Table, members of Parliament and the Diplomatic Corps, other executives, members of senior management, staff and students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This afternoon, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the Faculty of Law at the University of the West Indies Cayfield campus. As we reflect on the faculty's journey that began over 5 decades ago, it is with profound gratitude and admiration that I extend a warm welcome from the Office of the Dean and the academic and administrative staff. We are happy to welcome you, our esteemed alumni. Your presence here today evokes a quote that resonated deeply during last year's celebration of the campus's 60th anniversary, where we reunited with the very first cohort of students of the UWI Cayfield campus. The quote goes, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." While I appreciated the sentiment of that quote last year, today's gathering of the inaugural class of this Faculty of Law, of which I now serve as interim dean 50 years later, truly solidifies its profound meaning for me. The class of 1973 boasts several prominent legal practitioners and leaders, including Her Excellency, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, all of whose sterling contributions have not only elevated the practice of law, but have also enriched the fabric of our society. That's why, 50 years later, I can truly agree we are standing on the shoulders of giants. After all, it is with the establishment of the Faculty of Law that the Cayville campus became a full-fledged campus of the University of the West Indies. Today, we remain the premier law faculty in the region, a fact of which we are very proud. It is truly heartening to see many of you gathered here today using this momentous occasion to reconnect with old friends, reminisce about days gone by, and reflect on the journey that has brought us to this point. I would also like to extend a warm welcome and heartfelt appreciation to all our distinguished guests and the numerous members of the student body who have joined us for this special celebration. Your presence here today is a testament to the significance of this event and the collective commitment we share to advancing the cause of legal education in the Caribbean and beyond. As we look to the future, I am excited about the prospect of forging stronger partnerships with our alumni, who serve as invaluable resources and key stakeholders in our mission to provide the highest quality of legal education. The Faculty of Law is committed to working collaboratively with our alumni to continuously enhance our offerings in response to the evolving nature of law. By leveraging your expertise, insights, and experiences, we can ensure that our programs remain relevant, innovative, and responsive to the needs of our students and the communities we serve. In conclusion, let us not only celebrate the achievements of the past, but also embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. Together, let us reaffirm our commitment to excellence, integrity, and service as we continue to shape the future of legal education in the region and beyond. Once again, I extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for your invaluable contributions to our faculty and the field of law in the Caribbean. May this anniversary celebration serve as a moment of reflection, celebration, and reconnection as we honor the past, celebrate the present, and embrace the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Hippolyte. It is our pleasure this afternoon to welcome Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UWI Cayville campus, who will give us some remarks. Let us welcome him.
Master of Ceremonies, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, Deputy Principal Professor Winston Moore, Members of Parliament and the Diplomatic Corps, former Chief Justice Mr. David Simmons, Campus Registrar Mr. Rommel Carter, Campus Bursar Miss Lisa Aline, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, other deans and heads of department, the class of 1973, members of the head table, other executives, members of senior management, staff, and a special welcome to students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is with immense joy that I extend warmest greetings on behalf of the University of the West Indies Cayville campus to the distinguished members of our first graduating cohort of students in the Faculty of Law, who are reuniting here today after 5 decades. Welcome home. When I say home, I mean spiritual home, because I know that your home was the house on the hill. Welcome home, cherished alumni. You are history makers. The Faculty of Law was the first faculty created at Cave Hill in 1970. Prior to this, the proto-campus existed as the College of Arts and Science. Establishment of the law faculty triggered a wave of new faculties that make up the campus as we know it today, starting with the Faculty of Social Sciences in 1975 and proceeding through the faculties of Science and Technology, Humanities and Education, Medical Sciences, Sport, and until the most recently created faculty in 2020, the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts. Youngest, but the most enthusiastic. You, the founding cohort of students in our inaugural faculty, will always have a special place, not only in the historical annals of the campus, but also for the ethos of excellence that you bequeathed our academy. As we have witnessed and followed your journey after graduation, which has been a journey of dedication, high achievement, and unwavering commitment to the pursuit of justice. From landmark cases, groundbreaking legislation, service on the highest courts and legal offices, and contributions to legal education, your fingerprints are etched on the very fabric of the Caribbean legal system. My friends, I think it is appropriate that we should not only acknowledge all of you who are here, but also those of the inaugural class who could not be here, and those who have passed on. And I think it would be appropriate to mention Dennis Morrison, Justice Dennis Morrison, former appeal court judge, who passed on very recently. And I would invite everyone to stand for a moment's silence in memory of all of the cohort of 1973 who are no longer with us. Thank you very much. I am certain that upon stepping back into the hallowed halls of this faculty once more, memories of late-night study sessions, passionate debates, and the forging of lifelong friendships flooded your hearts. It's a shame that the black and white images are no longer up, which were there before. I thought they really captured, that sense of joy and purpose that you all exuded. As you retrace your steps and reconnect with old friends and colleagues, indulge yourself. Reflect on the journey that brought you back here today, the pioneering path that you took to courtrooms and boardrooms and legislative chambers and chambers of justice. And though we stand here humbled by your presence, we take delight in knowing that your impact has been profound and that your contributions have left an indelible mark on the legal profession, the wider Caribbean society, and the global stage. But perhaps your most important contribution has been your outstanding service to society. This class of 1973 has bequeathed to us many of the region's esteemed luminaries who have occupied the highest public offices, yes, in the legal profession, but also as political leaders and policymakers, and even heads of state. Allow me to pay special tribute and thank one such alumna here today, Her Excellency the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, whose sterling contributions to our country of Barbados and further afield serve as an inspiration to us all, and who has been instrumental in bringing us together today for this wonderful reunion. Ladies and gentlemen, as the inaugural class of the inaugural faculty at Cave Hill, you laid the foundation of the faculty structure upon which has been built our system of academic excellence and quality at the campus that has lasted to this day. When it comes to quality, the University of the West Indies never compromises. Everything that we do at the UWI is quality assured, certified, and accredited to international standards. Whether that is the laying of the new athletic track last week, which was certified by World Athletics, or whether it is a marquee UWI degree program like the Bachelor of Laws, the LLB, which is subjected to mandatory quality assurance reviews on a regular basis. One such review is actually approaching for the LLB next month, led by an eminent UK professor of law. An important part of the quality assurance process is to ascertain the continued relevance of our university degree programs by including a senior member of the relevant profession as a member of the inspection team. In the upcoming quality assurance review of the LLB next month, I am pleased to announce and very grateful that Ms. Liesel Weeks, who chairs the Barbados Council of Legal Education, has agreed to serve as the representative of the legal profession on the review team. Our students here today, the bright young minds who sit in the same lecture theatres and seats, that's metaphorical, that you yourself occupied yesteryear, will no doubt be inspired by meeting you, the first graduating class in person, to hear firsthand of your journey, your recollections, your idealism, the bonds and the battle, and the wisdom that you have gleaned over the years. It is my fervent hope that this week's activities will allow those of you who have racked up half a century's experience to mix and mingle with the students and staff now striding to the crease, to imbue today's law students with the same sense of purpose and ambition that to make their own indelible mark on Caribbean society and the wider world. Looking to the future, we are filled with optimism and excitement. Today, as we celebrate a temporal milestone, let us not only reflect on the achievements of the past, but also look forward to the opportunities that lie ahead. With the continued support of our alumni, faculty and friends, I am confident that the Faculty of Law at the Cave Hill campus will continue to lead the way in legal education and research, making a positive impact on the legal profession and society for generations to come. Congratulations once again on your golden reunion. As you mingled today, may your memories be as vivid as the day you donned those graduating robes, and may your legacy continue to inspire generations to come. Welcome home, graduates. Welcome home.
Thank you very much. Because this evening's proceedings have been dubbed a celebration, that we want to start to do, we will be entertained for a few minutes by Mr. Kimani Jilks, a law student. Let's welcome him. Thank you very much, Kimani. I think he deserves another round of applause. I perceive we're now getting down to brass tacks, so we will now hear the class of 1973, their address by Mr. Malcolm Adderley and Mr. Justin Simon Casey. We look forward to that.
Good morning, good afternoon. Protocol having been established, I'd like to just say good afternoon, everybody. Now, when we walked into this room a few minutes ago, my learned friend and I looked at the program and saw that we were supposed to be making addresses. And he looked at me and he smiled and asked me why didn't I tell him? I tell him I didn't know I was making an address. I thought basically the students would be here and we'll have some reflections. So what I'm saying is, I didn't come to make an official address. Let's call it perhaps some reflections of the past. And I think that we might be able to deal with it from that point of view. Now, it was December 1969, all right? I had just really returned to the Bahamas, having spent 3.5 years in the United States pursuing a degree in business communication, finance, and economics. When I returned to the Bahamas, what was supposed to be this joyous celebration of my coming back, my family suffered a tragedy, and everything was changed. So as a young man around 23 at the time, I found it difficult to fit into the local environment, social, political, economic, and I was sort of in a state where I'm not really know where to go from there already. And so I got involved in some trade union movements that the powers that be didn't like. I became a member of the Vanguard National Socialist Party, a party that was on the fringe, and when everybody heard the name, they ran the house and shut the door in your face. That's the sort of thing that I got involved in. So at the time, a number of my colleagues, a number of young Bahamians were going off to the United Kingdom to study law. But after spending 3.5 years in the United States in the 60s, where everything was going on, no way I was going to the UK. I decided, no way. So I was just pondering, and then I got a call from Mr. Colin Hope, a Jamaican national who was our director of education. He called, he said, come see me. When I went, he said, I got some good news for you. He said, why don't you say the Faculty of Law, UWI is opening up the Faculty of Law in Barbados. He said, why don't you apply this? Apply for the faculty, say, that would be good. He said, but you better apply right away because spaces are limited. I applied right away. I got it. I was able to get into the faculty. I was ecstatic, ready to go. And then what happened to me, now truth be told, let me say this, I knew nothing about Barbados, had no idea what to expect about this country. But what I did know, that there were a significant number of Barbadian citizens in my country, and they were playing a significant role in the Bahamas, all right? They were in the penal system, up at the prisons, there were police officers, there were teachers, and 3 of them, or my favorite teachers, were, it's been a long time, like Frank Preston, Reed, Edward Lawrence, and Ivan Holder. Mr. Watson was the treasurer of the Bahamas. My neighbors were Barbadians. At that time, I was a practicing Anglican, I was an acolyte as a younger boy, and Father Foster Pestina was my priest. So, you know, I figure I know all these people from Barbados. When I get to Barbados, I'd be all right. Because, you know, all was well. Now, in any event, I left the Bahamas on an American airline flight from Nassau to Miami en route to Cave Hill, Barbados. The thought that I would arrive in Barbados late that night, or that I had made no arrangements for accommodations once in Barbados. I had no confirmation that someone would pick me up when I reached the airport, or where I was going to sleep. None of these important things hit my mind. All I knew, I was coming to Barbados because I was going to be a student at the Faculty of Law. All right? I recall that the flight was practically empty. When I reached Barbados, a few times the plane circled around several times. I was wondering what could happen now. Looked like it can't land. As I look out the window, everywhere appeared to be pitch black. One could see what seemed to be small bushfires in spark areas. The airport appeared to be almost empty. I became concerned and began to think, Lord, is this where I'm going to spend my next 3 years? Notwithstanding all of that, I expected at some point I would see someone from the university who would come to my rescue and say, I'm here, let's go. I waited, nothing happened. So fortunately, there were a few taxis there, and I called the taxi. As I was coming here, he was leading me to the campus. And we got here, and Cave Hill was dark, black, pitch dark, no one, no lights. So he said, you know, we just had a hurricane. And in fact, no one is around. He said, how you gonna manage? I said, well, listen, you know what? Stay with me until I can decide what to do. Suddenly, the Lord looking down said, I can help you. This figure came out of the dark. I think it was the watchman. He said, why are you here? I said, what do you mean why are you here? I come to school. So he said to me, but nobody's here. The university did not expect anybody to come here because of the weather. I said, Lord, what's going to happen now? He says, no place for you to sleep, no place for you to go. I said, what is this? Then he said, but I tell you what, I can do something for you. I can let you sleep in one of the classrooms on some of the desk. I say, I mean, of course, you know what I mean? Where I was going, all right? The other thing that happened, God, he's saying, by the way, there's another guy here who in the room there too, say he'd be glad to see you. That guy was Jethro Miller, another member of the class of 1973, a Bahamian, who unfortunately left us, like most of our colleagues. He died in the summer of 1920 and 2022. Now, obviously, we did not sleep well that night. Couldn't wait for morning to come. Morning came, we stepped outside, the sun was shining brightly. The campus seemed to be overrun with students bouncing all around with excitement. At that moment, all my fears, my doubts, and misgiving just disappeared. We were among students from almost every island in the Caribbean, beaming with excitement. As I viewed the campus, uppermost in my mind was the word, darkness may come, but joy cometh in the morning. Yes, it was sheer joy, a new beginning. The excitement of meeting and becoming acquainted with colleagues from all over the Caribbean for the next 3 years gave me a feeling that's hard even today to express to anyone. The first year, there was no accommodation on Cave Hill. Jethro Miller, Harry Lockhart, who was another Bahamian, who left us after the first year to go to the UK to study law. He regrets it today. He wished he was here. And I, along with several other students, two of the students was another colleague, Evelyn Grell, who unfortunately is no longer with us also, and Judith Garraway, who's in the social services. So every day, morning to evening, we used to catch we call them at home the jitney. I just saw one coming here. Y'all got sophisticated buses now, but you know, the ones that was open on the side, right? And I remember holding on to the bus ends, because those drivers coming around those short bends, they couldn't see each other. All you'd hear is the horn blowing, and they're just swerving up and down, right? And you're holding on, hoping that you get here safe. But I understand that has changed, okay? So what we did, after the first semester, that's when Sherlock Hall was built, coming in the new year, 71, and we were able to move in Sherlock Hall. But before that, one of the good things doing that and being on campus was that initially we had to live at a place called Fontabelle. And at Fontabelle, the lady who accommodated us at Fontabelle was a Mrs. We call her Miss Tibble. Huh? Sybil. Tibbles. Now she owned this chicken shop, remember? We ate chicken every day for 7 days. I ate so much chicken, I don't want to see no more chicken. No. That's all she served, but we had to eat that, right? But me, I'm not hitting it, because that was, you know, in the age, you only wanted to have something that you like. Now, so we move on to Sherlock Hall, and that is when, in addition to attending classes together in the first term, you know, it provided a further opportunity for us to mix and mingle and build strong relationships and so share our respective visions. Now, let me just say this. During that first year, that's when I met everybody, but I must mention this for historical sense. I not inherited a brother, but I met a young man from Dominica who became like a brother to me. And we maintain that relationship even today. His name was Mr. Justin Simon, all right? That is the same gentleman there who also will be speaking to you. There was another gentleman, unfortunately he's not here, so, you know, I'll leave it as it is. Now, during the second year, colleagues arriving from Jamaica, Trinidad, and Guyana came. As the numbers increased, so did the competition, which kept us focused on the goal of blazing a trail for those who were expected to follow. We were the trailblazers and understood the role we were expected to play. We studied hard and had a burning desire to understand and learn the law as best as we could. Our mission was not just to obtain a law degree that would guarantee financial stability and social acceptance. We realized that we had a much higher calling. Our mission was to pave the road that would eventually lead to a new Caribbean legal culture, a developing Caribbean jurisprudence, one that involved a better life for the people of our respective territories. We were part of a historical context in which we were witnessing the birth of a new Caribbean legal system, incorporating the cultural, the social, the economic and political context. That was our destiny. We were exposed to Caribbean history and literature that reminded us of the difficult road that others have paved for us. This strengthened our resolve to become an integral part of the quest to liberate the minds of our people and remove the shackles that have for too many years divided us as a people, only far too long. It was a new world, a new environment that encouraged the liberation of our minds from our colonial mentality and the conditions imposed on us by our colonial masters. Now, my friends, this faculty of law, this faculty, my friends, yes, this faculty of the University of West Indies must never be regarded as just another institution of learning from which one can obtain a degree just to earn a living. Its role is far greater, much more important than this. Since its inception in October 1970, it has prepared future leaders from many Caribbean nations so that we would be ready to wear the mantle of leadership that our nation could be proud. One does not have to look far, ladies and gentlemen. There is evidence in every island of the Caribbean of this qualitative leadership. And a wonderful example of this is right here in this beautiful island of Barbados. Our classmate, one of us, a member of the distinguished class of 1973, Her Excellency, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason. The first President of the Republic of Barbados. Your Excellency, we join your countrymen in saying we're so proud of you and will always keep you in our prayers. My friends, you see, there was another member of our class, Sir Samuel Raymond Seaton. He was the former Governor General of St. Kitts and Nevis. Regrettably, he too was another classmate who left us on the 29th of June, 2023. Now, we left a lot of classmates. I'm not missing them out because in time you will hear their names. All right? You'll hear their names. But these are the two who went to the top of their country, so to speak. So I'm saying to you, now you understand why we are here in Barbados. At this faculty, at this time, our reunion is to return to where we started and to relive the magic. Like those many years that brought us as a group together, and we're still together. On our return to our respective countries, our classmates were appointed to every considerable position, whether it was cabinet ministers, high court and court appeal judges, magistrates, registrars of the Supreme and Appeal Court, you name it. It became generally accepted that UWI Faculty of Law and the law school had fulfilled the aspiration of those whose shoulders we stood on. I had something here that let me say it. Now, I want to just say this. Like my friend, Mr. Justin Simon, who was appointed by the Antigua government to serve as its Attorney General, in which capacity he served with distinction for 2 consecutive terms. In 2001, I was invited by the leader of the opposition in my country. I grew up with him and known him for many years. After long deliberations, he asked me, I agreed to set a nomination from him. But he put me in a constituency that they never won in their life. This is my good friend now. Put the constituency I'd never won in my life. I was a novice. I was green. I didn't know. I said, well, okay. He said, I need you to be my Attorney General. I trust you. All right? I know you could do a job. You know, I said, well, you know, if you feel that way, okay. Went there. But what happened was the government, they were in the opposition. They won the government. My problem began that I won the seat and won it convincingly. After that, the whole thing changed. I was offered the position of Speaker, which I declined. So I sat on the back bench for 5 years and that sort of thing. And then, interesting came the election in 2002. By this time, my family and I sat down and I decided I ain't running no more. It makes no sense, all right, with this group. We were away in Atlanta to my son's graduation. When we come in, I met a delegation on the airport, wanted to see me. These were my people. And they told me what took place in my absence and blah, blah, blah. And so I got a message from the then leader of the party who said that he wanted his people to meet with me. So they established a delegation at one of the hotels, a secret meeting, and telling me that even though the people who supported me the last time, they don't want to see me no more. And the party, Big Shot, didn't see me no more because of our past relationship. He's going to go against all these, and he could nominate me. I said, man, you must be joking. I got to be very foolish. But what happened, my people came and told them that if I didn't run, that they would boycott the election. And so they nominated me, I accepted it. And like God would do things, you know, God is a just God. I won, they lost. But after about 7.5 years with that sort of situation didn't work, I just resigned, and the rest is history. Now, I'm not promoting my book, but I have a book now that details a lot of remarkable journey. All right? And I'm going to make sure that, in fact, that in the next few weeks when it's published at the university, you'll have a copy for the library to be read. It's called A Walk with Destiny. It could be exciting. All right? Anyhow, it's only left for us as a group to set this example. Our trainings, it's only left for us to use our training and our experience to accept that we have a duty to unite our people in the region. The way ahead demands that we must work together and cooperate for self-determination. We must keep in mind that we live in a global world. Not all about law, you know. When you leave from here, you know, we gotta unite, because there's a lot of problems out there in the wider world. As such, Caribbean countries' foreign policies must be geared towards regionalization, the search for a common third world economic strategy, support for United Nations, and unswerving insistence on the right of self-determination for smaller countries like each of our own. If we as a global village are to survive as a Caribbean region, we must strive for unity. Destiny has brought us here together from all over the Caribbean so that we can get to know each other. And this was not by chance, you know. We did not just come here to settle down in Barbados for 3 years because there was no other school to go to. I live in the Bahamas, North, million schools that way. But destiny brought me here. Destiny brought all of us together for a reason. All right? On behalf of my colleagues, the class of 1973, the originals, we say, thank you, Barbados. Thank you, Jamaica. Thank you, Trinidad and Guyana, for bringing us hitherto unknown to each other together at a place, at a time, as young Caribbean minds eager to learn, with a goal to enter the wider Caribbean, hoping to make a difference in our respective island nations and its people. We might have never met, but destiny, which led our forebears to dream what might have seemed only a dream of having our own law faculty, but finally materialized into one of the finest legal institutions that any people would want to have in any part of the world, this Faculty of Law, law school. We, the class of 1973, over the years have forged a bond of friendship and brotherhood that has grown stronger these many years. And with God's help, will continue to grow and get stronger. We are grateful to all those visionaries, those dreamers on whose shoulders we stand, some of whom may still be with us, but many who have gone on. Just name a few. Dane Keith Patchett, the first Dean of the Law Faculty, Professor Ralph Carnegie, Professor Eddie Lang, Professor Woodrow Marshall, Professor Matthew Chuck Apaluba, Professor Holland Bland Fontaine, Attorney Ezra Alain, Sir David Simmons. Let me touch your hand. Thank you. Let me have you. Let me have you. We stand on their shoulders. And here we are today, proud to be what they encourage us to be and to bring out in us what we had in us. So thank you again on behalf of all your colleagues all over, so to speak. And for the students, I just want to say, may you, all of you here, and of the classes to come, may you be blessed, and may your focus for the future be to serve the people who need your guidance and assistance in legal and social issues that they may not be able to afford. And most of all, do not forget those who have made it possible for you to be where you are today. And so I say to all of you, one love, all the best.
Good afternoon, everybody. And let me recognize Most Gracious Excellency, Dame Sandra, who was part of our 1973 graduating class. I also wish to recognize Sir David Simmons, who was one of our tutors. And of course, I have to recognize my various friends and colleagues from 1970. And I should also recognize Professor Clive Landis, who I have met in another circumstance. It is not only a pleasure being here today, but I am filled with gratitude for the opportunity which the law faculty gave to me, not only in respect of learning, but also in respect of meeting colleagues from within the CARICOM region and creating a bond of friendship that has continued over the years, notwithstanding the fact that we are separated by the sea. In fact, it is unfortunate at this stage that we no longer have a LIAT that travels from island to island every day. I remember back in the days of the 1970s, we also had the federal boats, Federal Maple and Federal Palm, which were gifts from Canada to the Federation, which of course never lasted. And during our summer break, a number of us would travel on the federal boats, going either north or south, because the federal boats spent the day in each island and traveled only at nights. And that is how we became familiar with our various Caribbean territories. And there was also, as I mentioned, LIAT. The first time I traveled on LIAT was way back, can't remember the exact year, but I was still a secondary school student and attending the St. Mary's Academy. And in Antigua, there was the St. Joseph's Academy, both run by Christian brothers. And during Easter, we would have exchange in respect of sport activities. And I remember attending one of those activities, traveling from Dominica, which is where I am from, notwithstanding the fact that I have adopted Antigua and Barbuda as my home. And my father remonstrated me that I needed to behave myself. If not, he would not be spending the $40 for my ticket. And before Liat disbanded, the cost of a ticket from Antigua to Dominica was $1,400, $1,400. That is how things have changed within our Caribbean territories. But let me begin with my sojourn. I remember very distinctly when my father first asked me, what is it I would like to be in life? And I told him I would like to be a doctor. Because medicine, I had a very serious interest in. Because at that stage, because I was doing about 16 years, the fact that one could have been operated on opened up, dealt with, and tomorrow that very same person who had experienced that was walking along the road like me, talking, fascinated me. But my father was not impressed. He said to me, it's a very good idea, but two things you must remember. Studying medicine calls for money and it calls for brains. So I realized the old man did not have the money to send me to do medicine, and I didn't have the brains to study medicine. What I did not realize at that time was that my father's dream was for him to be a lawyer, and he wanted to see that dream realized in me. And eventually, with his friends' encouragement, I sat the exam for university for the law faculty, which was going to be opened in 1970, was successful. And that was how my father really behaved. Never telling you what to do, but always in a very subtle manner, indicating where he would like you to go. In fact, when I saw Kimani performing here, I remembered coming from Cave Hill, where I used to plait my hair. Excuse me? I had hair. Went home and did the very same thing. And I'm at home with my hair plaited. I was the first of 8, 3 girls, 5 boys. And my father comes in from work that afternoon, takes one look at me and says, when I left here this morning, I remember I had 3 daughters. He didn't have to say a thing more. I immediately left the house and got that hair unplaited. I say this to say to you students that your parents, your elder relatives, and also your friends are persons who would encourage you in one way or another and set the standards by which they expect you to live and to follow. It is important that you listen, that you observe, that you develop your ambition, focus on your goals, and realize your potential. Because in that way, not only do you make yourself happy, but you also make your family and friends happy, and you're able to give to your society in respect of its development much more than if you had not achieved that goal. So it's very important that you remain focused. 53 years ago, I came to Barbados, and my friend Malcolm spoke about his experience arriving here. I did not have such a traumatic experience arriving here in Barbados. But it was just the second time that I had actually traveled by aircraft, by Liat, first to Antigua and then to Barbados. So it was all very new to me. And I came here. Sherlock Hall was not opened until the January of 1971. It was then under construction. And I moved to Sherlock Hall. And of course, with all of my other law as well as colleagues from the other disciplines. And we developed a camaraderie, a friendship that has lasted. And I do not think in our wildest dreams did any of us envisage that 50 years later, most of us would be here in celebration and also to give thanks to all of those who have made it possible for us. So I say this simply to tell you that your future is really open to you. What you want to achieve, how you want to develop. And it is important that you keep focused. In fact, whenever I meet groups of students on the streets in Antigua, I have now begun to stop them and to speak to them about their earning or learning, their educational experience, focusing on their studies, because the rest of life that we're going to experience will always come. But the opportunity for learning, studying, and achieving begins from now at that stage. And that is exceedingly important. So we are here today. There are some of us who were not able to make it for one reason or another. But we are very grateful. And we've come and stand here, or sit here, as most of us are doing, so that you recognize that we have realized our dreams. And these are dreams that you too can realize in time. It is important that you recognize too that we are part of a wider society. And it's a society that grows and develops, and a society in which we must play a very integral part so that we assist in its development, in its growth, and in our people achieving we have a system, a governmental system, which we call the Westminster model. I have grown to have a problem with that model. And as I keep on telling persons who I speak to, it's a model that was thrust on us by the British. No doubt with all good intentions. But it's a model that the British grew and developed over centuries. And any of you who know the English history will know very well that it never started as it is today. You had the execution of a king, you had the Civil War, in the days of Cromwell, and that basically changed the English system. Women were not even allowed to vote until 1900. But all of that we now have. But unfortunately, our constitutions are such that the power and authority that we vest in the Prime Minister, who no longer is first among equals, but is first way above other equals, is not necessarily the best thing for us. We need to address our society's feelings, our ills, and as students of law, it is important that you recognize the need for constitutional reform. And it has to begin with you. That is very, very important. Because I think you recognize that our political highways are now becoming political byways. Our governmental structure, responsibilities are changing rapidly. And our leaders of today are not the same as our leaders of yesterday. It is unfortunate because we are today more educated, more traveled, do more research, exposed to more, and yet still we have not developed in the manner in which I believe we should have. I have myself spent some time within the government structure, and it has not been easy. Because there was a tendency within the cabinet of which I was part of that, how should I put it properly and carefully? There was the tendency that winning the next election was an important goal. And therefore, whatever we did must be geared towards that. And to ensure that those who supported us, voted for us, would continue so to do by us ensuring that they are properly fed. So that rather than teach persons how to fish, we give them the fish, and they become dependent on us for that fish. Speaking out independently and looking at things on a more broader perspective, objectively and constructively, we seem to be losing it. There are times when I ask, why can't the government not accept recommendations from the opposition? And why can't the opposition not support government in respect of some of its policies? Because we are committed to developing the country, our country. And this divide and rule basis is not the way that we should go. We should try to be more cooperative, more constructive, more understanding, and more objective. I remember one Carnival cabinet meeting when I spoke on a particular matter, and this cabinet minister stood up right after I spoke and said, "You know, Justin, you're not such a bad fellow, you know. But if you had come in through the back door, I wouldn't mind listening to you. But it's through the bathroom window we squeezed you in." And that was simply because he didn't like what I said, because it was not, as far as he was concerned, politically correct. And I turned to the Honorable Prime Minister, who was at my left, and I said to him, "If I was squeezed in through that bathroom window, Mr. Prime Minister, you were the one who squeezed me in. Are you ready to squeeze me back out?" And he said, "No, I am not." And I turned to the member and I said to him, in Antiguan parlance, "Abe, me a tap right here." In other words, think as you wish. I am staying right here and not moving. So the point I wish to make also is that we need to be independent thinkers. There is no reason why we have to agree with everything that our colleague or associate says. We have our own thought patterns. We can develop them along those lines, share them. Other persons may not agree. But you respect their opinions and expect them to respect your opinions. And it's only from this exchange that we can develop as a society and as a group. And with your university education that you are now achieving, it gives you a very important role in terms of leadership. A role that you must embrace and a role that you must follow. I'm not suggesting that you push yourself up and make it be known that you are knowledgeable and others are not. That is not the way how we do it. Sitting here with us, Sir David Simmons, who was in the 70s one of our lecturers. And today he's a retired Chief Justice of Barbados. He has made a significant contribution in respect of the development of the jurisprudence not only of Barbados, but of the wider community. Sir David was one who gave wholehearted support to the establishment of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Unfortunately, all of the Caribbean islands have not yet adopted that court as our final court of appeal. And I'm appealing to you, students, that it is important that that be part of our constitutional reform process. If you read the judgments of the Caribbean Court of Appeal, we're looking at judgments that reflect our society, that speak to the practicality of what happens within our society and how it should develop. And even the Privy Council today will refer certain determinations back to the Court of Appeal of the respective territories for determination, because they say quite clearly, we are not familiar with the norms, and it is better that those matters are dealt with by the courts of the jurisdiction. I mean, quite apart from that, we're also aware of various Lord Justices who have indicated that the Privy Council is spending too much time dealing with matters that do not concern Great Britain. spending money in respect of that. And that is a message which is being sent to us, and yet our politicians don't seem to understand and appreciate. Where is the seat of the CCJ? Trinidad and Tobago. Is Trinidad and Tobago part of the CCJ? No, it's not. In its original jurisdiction, yes, all of us are. In its appellate jurisdiction, it is not. And yet, the headquarters of the court sit in Trinidad and Tobago. I have a fundamental problem with respect to that. And I don't blame the people. I blame our politicians, our leaders. We are becoming too divided, divisive in respect of our policies in the territories. If the government proposes, because we are opposition, we oppose. And yet still, if we become the government, the very same policies that we had opposed when we were in opposition, we now want to incorporate and establish. Situations like that, I just would want to just cuss. But I'm in respectable company, but I am indicating that this is what's happening within our society, and this needs to change. And you, along with us here, must make the change. The Faculty of Law has produced quite a number of outstanding students. Some have become attorney generals, some have become ministers of government, some have become judges. And we had, as you were told, a former president of the Court of Appeal in Jamaica, who's just recently passed away and was part and parcel of our group. So we can quite easily say, without contradiction, that we have made some contribution. But where we have stopped or where we have slowed down, the opportunity and the responsibility is yours, students. Let me also say to you that proper preparation prevents poor performance. So it's important that you spend time in respect of your research, your studies. You're gaining that wealth of knowledge which is important not only for you to pass an exam, but also to broaden your minds and to allow you to make a difference within the society. My 3 years here in Barbados was extremely educational, not only in respect of the studies, but also what I learned from my friends, especially those who were older than me. There's so many jokes that I remember, but I don't think this is the opportunity or the time to share with you. But the important thing is that you grow with a balance. There are times when you laugh, and the times when you take things seriously. And it's you to determine how best you work at things. And what is important, that you give each other the necessary support and encouragement as you aim towards that goal of not only obtaining your degree, but moving on to the respective law schools and then to your practice. Let me say one thing, that education is not confined to what you learn at university. so that you must keep your minds open. So as you become a part and parcel of the active society in which you live, you will also grow in terms of your education, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your experience. And that makes you a better and more worthwhile citizen in your country. So let me finally end by saying that it's a pleasure being here. And as I look around, I realize in over 3 years, we never had that facility. Sorry? Yes, we were, in fact, we were first housed as the Faculty of Law was first housed at the principal's former home. Small area. And basically our lectures took place at the Arts Theatre. I think they would still have that there. That's where most of our lectures took place. And notwithstanding those humble beginnings and surroundings, we have achieved. So we expect much more from you, the students, who are enjoying an environment that is far richer and better than ours. To my colleagues, I'm so happy to see you all here. It's unfortunate that we did not have many more for one reason or another, but I could not miss this opportunity. I know I did not join you all for breakfast, but I was a tired man last night, having traveled in the afternoon to here, because our work is constant. That's the thing with law. Our work is constant. And with new technology, things are becoming even more demanding and requesting sacrifice of you. No longer do your clients wait until they come to the office. Everybody's WhatsApping you, or they're sending you emails left, right, and center. So you have very little time for yourself unless you make the time for yourself. And that is very important. You need to make time for you. You have to have your fun. You have to enjoy life and also enjoy what you're doing. In fact, that would make you or give you even more incentive to enjoy the work that you're doing and to put in as much as possible so that your parents, your friends, your colleagues, and your lecturers are all proud of you. 50 years from now, one of you will be standing right here. And I can assure you, I will be looking down at you from the heavens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Your words will be remembered for a long time. Not just the unsparing contact with the podium from our previous speaker, but we will remember your words. We still sense the fire that you have and the sense of pride towards our dear faculty. It is now my pleasure to invite Mrs. Eileen Boxall for the roll call for those members of the class who have passed. And I think this is fitting in light of prior events a little bit earlier.
Good afternoon, everyone. I tell you, I'm so happy to be here. I too have stories, you know, but that is not my task here. My task is to read the name of the members of the class who have been, can't hear, sorry. So my task is to read the names of the members of the class of 1973 who have answered a higher call and have transitioned from this earth. They are not here with us today in person, but I believe they are here in spirit. Can I ask the members of the class who are present to stand while I read the names of our departed colleagues? Melville Atwell, Haynes Blackman, P.R. Campbell, Robert Andrew Cummings, Hilford David de Turville, Roy Fairclough, Paulette Goldson, Hertie Evelina Grell, Anthony Jack, Leroy Jackman, Kenneth Mackenzie, Jethro Miller, C. Dennis Morrison, K.F. Omar Maharaj, Chandila, Kenny Prasad, Bernard Pitts, Conrad Richardson, Kenneth Sagar, Samuel Seaton, Keith Sobian, Abram Thomas, Lincoln Walton. May their souls rest in peace and light perpetual shine upon them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we invite the Principal, Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UWITV full campus. We invite him to come forward together with Mr. George Belnavis for the handing over of the class scroll.
Master of Ceremonies, Madam President, distinguished guests, I know I'm supposed to hand over this scroll, but with your permission, Master of Ceremonies, I'd just like to say a few words. I look at this beautiful building, and I recall that when we were students in 1971, there's a little wooden building, I would think to my right, that we used to have to walk up in the mornings. And that was our faculty building. And I note that this lecture theater, this wonderful lecture theater, which we didn't have anything like this, is named after Professor A.R. Ralph Carnegie. And I'd just like to say something briefly about Professor Carnegie. I recall the first morning contract lecture, and he says, "Good morning, my name is Ralph Carnegie. I'm your professor in the law of contract." He says, "If you wish to pass your exams, you may read Cheshire and Firefoot. But if you wish to get first-class honors, you must come to my classes." Then he proceeded to say, "Let me tell you all about the tenuousness of the applicability of the materiality concept." And all of us say, "What? What did he just say a while ago?" So, you know, there's a lot more things that I could have said, but since my duty and task is to present this scroll, I will do so. Professor Landis, on behalf of the class of 1973, it gives me great pleasure to hand this scroll to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Belnavis. I hope I don't use those words in my contract lectures. The baton has been passed on to me these days, but I'll let the students do the judging of that. It is time for the roundtable discussion, led by the president of the Law Society, Mr. Timothy Roper, and we're going to hear from Mr. Justin Simon again on this. All right, so we look forward to this part of the program. Yes, Mr. Roper and Mr. Simon.
Where's Mr. Roper? He's coming.
You can probably see.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Protocols observed, and considering they have been established, I'm so glad to be here. Oh, okay. Height. Right. I'm so glad to be here, and of course, I would like to welcome the panelists, who are, of course, our students who we love to hear from. We have 3 students who are going to be coming here to speak with us, and I will, of course, try my best to moderate by asking some questions regarding a topic. We have Mr. Charlie Adhar. He is a first-year student from Ghana. We can welcome Mr. Adhar to the stage. We also have Miss Tonian Watson. She's a second-year student from Jamaica. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Raheem Augustine Joseph. He was our class valedictorian for the recently concluded graduation that we had. And of course, he was doing a major in political science and minoring in law, but he loved law so much that he has opted to complete his studies and to get his LLB. So we welcome him as well. Okay, all right, fine. I've been charged to ask if any members of the graduating class would like to come and partake in the discussion as well, if anybody else wants to join. Okay.
Mr. Belnavis, would you be prepared to come and help and join us? Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we were charged with addressing a particular topic, a key topic that has been affecting a good amount of our Commonwealth Caribbean states, but I do think that we can broaden the scope. We have a lot of legal minds here, and I do imagine that a lot can be discussed in the short time we have. We are all aspiring lawyers and lawyers after all. But our preliminary topic that was given to me was, should statutory bodies be held accountable to Parliament? One might automatically think the answer is yes. Our bodies they gain their authority from statute and from legislation. And having been a student of administrative law, I am well aware of the presence of de facto and de jure bodies. But the first question I want to ask, what would we define a statutory body to be? Don't all come at once. Charlie, I
think I'd like to give a student the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charlie.
And good afternoon, everyone. A statutory body is defined as a public authority, a board, a commission, or any other body corporate that is established or and incorporated under an act of Parliament. I'm taking that definition directly from the Barbados Fiscal and Audit Act, Fiscal Management and Audit Act, 2007, Section 2.
Okay, all right, thanks for that, Charlie. Raheem, I feel like you want, not Charlie gave a very succinct definition. Okay. Any other persons on the panel want to give their definition of what they deem to be a statutory body?
Well, I think Charlie is totally correct in terms of technical definition, but I think it's also important for us to bear in mind that within the governmental structure, you have various ministries and departments within the ministries, and the Minister of Government has the overall responsibility for policy directive in respect of his ministry and the departments within his ministries. Statutory bodies are independent and should be acting independent of any particular minister of government. Though, of course, they will take into consideration in their deliberations the general public policy of the government.
Mr. Belnavis, yes? Check. Go ahead.
Justin, that is in theory. What about the reality? I mean, you are going to be somebody from the authority is going to say to the minister, no, I'm not following your rules. What will happen to that person in terms of their career or their upward movement or maybe their lateral movement? You know?
Well, Mr. Belnavis, that leads me to my second question. How can we in fact hold statutory bodies accountable? We have to take into consideration that, as Charlie would have stated, a lot of our statutory bodies, they are formed and they draw their power from statute. Taking that into account, what measures do we have do we have in place to ensure that these statutory bodies are held accountable and don't act ultra vires? Wink, wink. I gave you a tidbit. Raheem, go ahead.
Thank you, Timothy. For a moment, I felt like I was in a tutorial and the first question was asked and everyone looks around and until someone answers. But suffice it to say, Timothy, there are many measures that we have already applied. I think Barbados provides a very good example of statutory bodies providing responses and general considerations as part of the parliamentary structure, insofar as they make representations to the parliament and have some, I guess I'm going to use a very terrible word, cross-examinations by parliamentarians. But that's on the legislative end. But there are other considerations. So whether it be the judicial oversight, there may be some concerns as to what the scope of various administrative justice acts provide. So you can only provide oversight over a body in some context if it is classified as public. But then we know that there is still the problems acquired as to what is public and private and what is straddling between the two. So Ghana provides a good I think, benchmark because it focuses on what is the source of the money of the statutory body, what public power does it derive, if any at all, how is it enacted, whether it be by statute or any other particular form of enactment, and therefore it is utilizing all of these particular areas does one decide whether it is public or private, and therefore if one could have judicial oversight. And lastly, I think the public has a much wider accountability or statutory body to have a much wider accountability to the public, because ultimately they serve people of the Caribbean. So whether it be the Tourism Authority or whether it be a committee that is established to review scholarships, they cannot be insulated from people. But they are, because we understand the political fray and not wanting public officials to be directly into the political fray. But that's a discussion for another time. That, I think, summarizes my tutorial, and I think I'll wait for the mark after.
Thank you for that, Raheem. Raheem touched on a very important point, the role of the judiciary in holding our statutory bodies accountable. Of course, our statutory bodies, they have to report to Parliament. And the question I ask myself, do statutory bodies report to the legislature or to the executive primarily? Because they normally fall under the oversight of a member of cabinet. And while our cabinet members do serve in Parliament, will the cabinet member, therefore, and the member of executive, convey what has taken place in that statutory body to Parliament? The answer, in theory, as Mr. Belnevy says, that it should be yes, but we find that that doesn't take place. So when someone in a statutory body abuses discretion, there is one tried and true method that we have to hold them accountable in the judiciary. Raheem touched on it. Whether it be the Judicial Review Act or the Administrative Justice Act, we have statutes that provide our courts with the power to hold people accountable and to ensure justice is upheld. And I'm, of course, speaking of our avenue, judicial review. Tonian?
May I just make a comment? We have a classic case going on in Jamaica right now.
Right now, as a Jamaican, my interest is also very piqued.
And I suspect that the matter is going to go before the courts for the courts to adjudicate. Because each side is saying, no, I am right, and the other side is saying, no, the proper procedure wasn't followed. But this is more a case now where it's not the statutory bodies who are not being accountable. It may well be that it is the legislature, the political directorate who is not accountable.
1 second, Mr. Chair. Could you tell us exactly what is the issue? Just generally.
It's two reports were sent to Parliament by the Accountant General. One relates to Auditor General. The TAJ report, there are two reports, and they were sent to Parliament. Well, the Speaker of the House has sent them back and saying that the proper procedure was not followed, and then there's a big kerfuffle now as to whether or not the clerk of the House of Parliament has done the right thing, and I suspect the opposition is pushing it, so I think this matter is going to reach to the courts.
Well, only time will tell, but Tonian, do you want to give us a succinct definition of judicial review and its merits in, facilitating this accountability?
I would say this is a bit of a traumatic experience for me, as I'm currently fighting through the material for administrative law in preparation for my exam. So you caught me at a good time. I just went through the first worksheet. But though I don't remember it word for word, essentially, judicial review is a means by which we try to hold accountable those statutory bodies and bodies that are private but serve public functions within our societies. And interestingly, when we were going through the first question as to what the statutory bodies are, and as mentioned by Mr. Belnavis here, we have issues where maybe these bodies should be accountable to the ministers that assisted in forming the legislation that put them into power. But what happens when those bodies determine, oh, well, I don't want instructions from you because though you created the body, I head it. So you could stay over there and I'll do what I need to do to get things done. But you mentioned abuse of discretion, and once again, traumatic experience. But when we speak of abuse of discretion and whether a body fettered their discretion, etc., it is a matter that allegedly, according to my notes, the court is reluctant to step into sometimes the action, separation of powers, all that lovely stuff. But we find that those exceptions to the rules are very prevalent. We start off a statement by saying, when it comes on to this decision by this body, we allow them to do what they are supposed to do. Their power is from statute, not from the court. And so the court is reluctant to step into these matters. However, where these matters or these decisions are tainted by illegality, impropriety, the court will step in. And we're seeing that, I feel, a bit more often these days. I find that from not a legal standpoint, just a citizen of the lovely island of Jamaica, we have many issues where bodies make decisions or we maybe have legislation that is passed, and then a couple of days after the Jamaica Gleaner reports that there is now a big issue and citizens are concerned, a particular minister is now bringing it to the House that maybe this should not have been done. And where we have that issue that you mentioned regarding bodies not wanting to take words, for example, from a minister, I guess you have no choice but to just take it to court.
Well, again, in theory, that is exactly why our judiciary exists. But I guess my last line of question with regard to this particular topic, what about bodies who do not draw their powers directly from statute? What if, let's say, what's the phrase? If it walks and talks like a duck, then it's a duck? That's the phrase? Mm-hmm. Right. So what if it is that we have a body, an entity that has no statutory powers? It's not established by statute, but for the most part, the body is acting exactly like a public authority would. Is it then that we should not hold this entity accountable, or should the judiciary step in? Do we term this body a statutory body or not? Are they a statutory body by means of de facto or de jure powers? What does anybody want to weigh in on what the courts feel about on that stance?
Yeah, I think it's important that you recognize that the statutory authorities or bodies are created by statute. There's no two ways about it. And it's done along those lines so that it removes the minister under whose general authority that statutory authority is created from overdue influence on that statutory body. Now, when we speak of the judiciary coming into the fray, one must understand that the judiciary does not act on its own initiative. The action has to be brought before the judges for them to make any ruling on it. And therefore, it's important in respect of the formulating of the legislation that the legislation should be very precise in respect of the role of that statutory authority, what are its powers, importantly, its members, what qualifications should the members have, so that we are appointing persons, or we have the ability to appoint persons who would bring to the authority their knowledge and their experience. Thank you very much. Technocrats, rather than political yes persons who, because they have voted, are expecting to put themselves be in that role, and who the ministers will expect total devotion to. We have in Antigua right now an issue with a particular bank, which is an overseas bank, registered there in Antigua, dealing with overseas clients, and which is run, or I shouldn't say run, but which has, or which the FSRC, Financial Security Regulatory Commission, has authority, supervisory authority over. And the bank right now is in a whole lot of trouble in terms of debts and is being sued left, right, and center for monies which it has received but is unable to pay out. And we all know that you put your money in the bank and the bank does not keep that money. It only keeps a percentage based upon its legislation or directives from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. The rest of the money is invested. But the important thing with our situation is that the supervisory authority has done nothing up to now. They have not even said anything, despite the fact that the matter has been receiving a lot of public attention. Public attention to the point where someone put up a billboard and had the CEO's picture on that billboard, and with the questions, where is my money? What have you done with it? And you know what was the result of that? Our Development Control Authority was authorized to remove that billboard. What authority it had to do so, I have no idea. But when I made a few calls to inquire of the supervisory authority what's happening, I was told, why don't you speak to the chairman of the board? And when I made inquiries as to who the chairman of the board was, it happens to be a person who is, how should I put it, a very political person appointed for that purpose. Not that he has any qualifications in respect to that, but he's a very ardent supporter, vocal supporter of the government. He's been placed in there. And that is the problem that we have. So as far as I'm concerned, our public statutory authorities, their role should be defined, their policies should be defined, and the legislation should indicate or give them, how should I put, place an obligation on them every year to state what your policy is going to be and what you intend to achieve for that year. But more importantly, I think the financial officer and the chair should find themselves in Parliament every year to answer questions in respect of the budget, what they achieved the year before, how much money they have spent, how much money they have received, and things of that nature. So that we have details in respect of what they're doing and where they're going. In the absence of that, the political directorate take charge, and of course, a number of us are just afraid to appeal or to file any proceedings in the court in respect of that. Because, you know, the first question is, you're raising those issues, what's going to happen to you, or not, even not you, member of your family, who may be over there and who may be there, and what may be the result. And that is where we are at this stage. So it is important that the legislation speaks to those various issues. Now, what is ironic about it is that it's the very same Parliament where the government has the majority that will be passing the legislation. Are they prepared so to do?
I think you have enough information to pass your administrative law exam, Tony, and you are well equipped. But yes, I absolutely concur with Mr. Simon's comments, because as someone who has fallen in love with drafting, I find that we need to actually place proper resources on developing statutes that are of pertinent importance, especially when it comes to government oversight and how it is that we're supposed to regulate our statutory bodies. I just want to deviate from the topic just slightly, two more action points and then we can conclude. The famed, I find this is definitely, most definitely the proper panel to talk about this with. Charlie is from Guyana. And Guyana, of course, subscribes to the Caribbean Court of Justice's appellate jurisdiction. we have Raheem right here, who's from St. Lucia, and St. Lucia has just recently subscribed to the jurisdiction. Of course, Tonya and I are humble Jamaicans who are watching from the sidelines as our colleagues celebrate this recent achievement. Mr. Belnaby says we will continue to watch for a prolonged period of time. But my question is this, and especially as a student who loves public law, when I was taught about the intricacies of constitutional law, I grew to realize the importance of having a regional final appellate court. And I guess I want to ask Raheem and Charlie, what are your thoughts about the fact that both of your countries now subscribe to the CCJ's appellate jurisdiction in comparison to subscribing to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council?
Thank you very much, Timothy. Just a few things. In countries, and I don't want to reduce the efforts of countries like Antigua and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, who've attempted to go the route. But because of what...
And Jamaica's attempted as well.
And Jamaica for the court case.
Yes.
But I'm sort of drawing on previous scholarship, because I believe in this cross-fertilization of ideas, that there's these constitutional handcuffs that Richard Albert speaks about that's ingrained within some of the constitutions within the Caribbean, which make it very difficult to make these amendments towards the Caribbean Court of Justice. In St. Lucia's case, thanks to the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal, who found that there was an error in the drafting of the Constitution of St. Lucia, which allowed us to accede to the Caribbean Court of Justice without the referendum requirement. So Section 41(7)(c), I believe, don't quote me, made the point that one must refer to Section 107, but when one went to Section 107, it spoke about appeals to a particular court. Yeah, but really, when you check the Dominica Constitution, among others, that same section, which I quoted 107, spoke about appeal straight from the High Court to the final appellate court. So the court really held that this could not have meant the Court of Appeal, but instead meant the Caribbean Court of Justice, and therefore we were allowed to accede to the Caribbean Court of Justice on that basis. But I don't doubt, and it's not being pessimistic, but I don't doubt that had we gone for the referendum route, that we might have suffered a similar fate of the other countries, because I don't think the Caribbean Court of Justice, and Dr. Grenade speaks about it in the Caribbean Governance on Trial, that I don't think that it is the Caribbean Court of Justice which is on trial. I think Caribbean governance is on trial because people are voting not on the basis of whether one should accede to the CCJ or not, but they're voting based on how well or how well not the government is performing, and that the opposition has coalesced in many instances in a very intellectual bankrupt mechanism to go through the idea that the CCJ in some respects is not good for the country, or rather the old colonial idea that it is not the right time, as if there is ever a right time to start the decolonization process. So I say all of this very quickly to say that there are a lot of benefits to acceding, but there must be a constant public education in every country so that people understand the nature, they understand the nuances, they understand the benefits, so that they too can be on board with the mission. Because it's all right to accede, but even if you accede and people don't know what the court is about, it's really a waste of time, because really you have the presence of the court, but people are not aware of the purpose of the court, and therefore we must accede, yes, but there must be that constant public education which must underpin that amendment process. But also that it needs to be this regional approach towards constitutional reform. And this petty politics about whether it is that the CCJ is good or for one end, or whether it's not good that some opposition parties play, I don't know that it's really good for the regional development. So I'm happy, Timothy, to be in good company, Barbados, among other countries, and we hope that at some point, Jamaica will cross the fold together with Trinidad, among others, and grounding that type of development in the hearts of people, because that is central.
Yes. I just want to commend Rahim and to say that I am on all fours with his thoughts on that process. Our problem really is one of education, because the general public do not seem to appreciate and understand. Secondly, there's also the question of finance, how expensive it is to go to the Privy Council. The only country within the Caribbean that the Privy Council has actually gone to hear appeals was Bahamas. In all the years that the Privy Council has been adjudicating matters within the Caribbean. That's the only time it went. And that was about, what, 2 or 3 years ago in the Bahamas. Nowhere else. Everything is in London. Well, China is not. let's leave that one out for the time being, because Hong Kong is, again, not part of us. But the important thing also that we've got to recognize is that there's too much divisiveness within our political structure. Because I am encouraging this, or would like that to happen, I am on the other side. No, you, not you. It has to be me. So I'm going to oppose it for opposing's sake. And that is exactly what happened in Antigua. I, as a member of the opposition party, was one of the few opposition members who actually spoke publicly for the CCJ. And I expressed my disappointment in my colleagues in respect of that. Because it cannot be because we are not in government that we are not going to be supporting a move like this, which is beneficial to the people. And that is where we need to start. Educating people and eradicating that divisiveness that we allow politics to deal with us. I mean, I have friends on the other side. I speak to them, I recognize where they are, they recognize where I am, but that does not make us enemies. In fact, if I make it into a joke, the Labour Party, which is in government in Antigua and Barbuda, their color is red. The opposition, its color is blue. I am now driving a red Jeep. And on many occasions, my phone would be ringing. Hey, Justin, so I see you turn Labour now. Why? Because I'm driving a red Jeep. Red does not belong to the Labour Party. So my normal answer to them would be, it takes a strong blue man to wear red in public. Don't mess around with me.
Charlie, any comments?
I don't think that it would be accurate to say that Guyana's joining the CCJ was a recent achievement. Guyana and Barbados, I think, were the first to join the CCJ. And the Republican Constitution was contemplated to allow for this to happen because the Court of Appeal of Guyana was set as the final Court of Appeal in Guyana, which was clearly Guyana was itching to get away from the Privy Council as soon as possible. And we had also put a provision into the Constitution that the Parliament may, by Act of Parliament, set any other court as the apex court of Guyana, paving the way for the CCJ to come in by way of the CCJ Act. And the CCJ has been shaped by cases from Guyana. Their jurisprudence was shaped by cases from Guyana, the most notable one of which would be McEwan and the Attorney General, where the court struck down colonial laws in spite of a savings law clause that prevented men from being found in public with female attire, or females in public with male attire for an improper purpose. Whether the Privy Council would have done the same given the decision in Chandler is open to question. And I think another benefit of having the Caribbean Court of Justice is access to justice, which is as important as quality of justice, because it makes no sense that you have perfect courts that nobody can reach. So it's more expensive to have your appeal heard in London than it would be to have it heard in Trinidad. So it's quite unfortunate that most Caribbean countries have not been able to follow suit and adopt a regional court that is willing to interpret the law according to our regional norms that is right within the Caribbean. And it is especially most unfortunate, as Sora would have pointed out earlier, that the very country in which this court is located has yet to adopt it as its final court of appeal. All right, thank you.
I was literally about to piggyback on that, Charlie. When I started doing my research for constitutional law, because I wanted to be a diligent student and I didn't understand anything that was being taught at the time, it was just so shocking for me to grow to realize that we have this beautiful system. We have one of our countries, one of the first countries actually in the Caribbean to switch to republicanism, that has championed for, of course, a movement away from decolonization, yet still, and of course the court is in fact housed in the country, yet still Trinidad decides to remit their appeals to the Privy Council. I found it interesting, and it was something that piqued my interest even further, because when I came here in my first year, I was here. It was during COVID, so all teaching was online, but I still opted to come to Caville because I wanted to leave my mother's house, and I also wanted to experience culture. If I were in Jamaica, I know I would just be commuting back and forth from home to Mona. At Caville, I have interacted with several nationalities. We have a St. Lucian, someone from Ghana, a Jamaican on our panel here, and I find that Caville provides you with a lot of opportunities to actually interact with different nationalities. Of course, this graduating class, at the time, you would have had to do either 1 year at Mona or the University of Ghana or St. Augustine, and then complete your 2 years at Caville. My mother, she would of course always tell me that first year at Mona was nice, but the final 2 years, if my mother wants to go to Antigua, she can call one person and automatically she has some place to stay. Regional integration is so important, and it is of course also a good thing that we still have our 3 law schools now that cater to different nationalities. So of course, I, as a Jamaican, I have to go back to Normandy, but we have our St. Lucian students or Vincentian students. If they want to pursue law, they're gonna have to go to a different country to get their LLB, but then they're gonna have to go to Trinidad to experience doubles. I'm sorry, I love doubles. I went to Trinidad last year and I fall in love with doubles. Experience a different culture. It was just so important. But going back to the last point that I want to touch on now. When I was here in my first year, I was so pleased and happy that I was able to witness Barbados' transition into republicanism. I remember the night clearly. It was my best friend's birthday, and we went out. Her birthday is November 29th, and we went out to a restaurant nearby town. And then afterward, we were going to come back on Hall. Of course, we lived on the greatest hall, Sir Philip Sherlock Hall. Raheem, I'm sorry. Raheem used to be the hall chairperson for Frank Royal Hall, but I digress. And when we were with Emily, that's my best friend, they wanted to come back home, and I said, but Bridgetown is just 5 minutes away. We can't miss this momentous occasion. Now, of course, everybody wanted to see Rihanna. I understand. But it was such a pleasure to be there to witness that momentous occasion. Part of it, and actually being able to say, okay, I actually did see Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason, and now I see her right in front of me. Republicanism has become a trend that is sweeping across our nations. When I was working for our Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs in Jamaica last summer, I didn't even realize that Dominica, when they became independent, they automatically became a republic. Only Commonwealth Caribbean country to have achieved that. Only Commonwealth Caribbean countries have achieved that. So now that we are seeing a trend towards republicanism, and again, this goes back to the draconian topic of constitutional reform. But Jamaica is on a self-proclaimed, quote, road to the republic. Is the road a dead end, a cul-de-sac? Mr. Bell Navy says the road has several potholes. I do concur. But with that being said, you know, right now Jamaica is at a precipice. If it is that we are going to switch to republicanism, the next question that one would automatically ask is, and of course Jamaica, the provisions in Jamaica's constitution are so deeply entrenched that we have to have a referendum. The next question would be, should we subsequently have a referendum on switching to the CCJ? And the next question we need to ask is the public adequately informed about how our legal system is set up? Charlie, of course, Ghana is the People's Cooperative Republic of Ghana. That's the official title of your state, is it not?
Without the word peoples, yes. Without the word people.
Right. So I found it particularly interesting when I was doing my research. I think it was it Mr. Simon, you had spoken exactly about the Westminster model. I found it interesting that when I assessed Ghana's constitution, I was seen as a depart more so as to how Ghana functions. And right now Jamaica is asking this question, should we keep a ceremonial head of state or should we not have a ceremonial head of state? A lot of questions that are undubitably warranted.
In fact, these are questions which have to be answered one way or the other. And whether your head of state should have certain powers or should that head of state simply be a figurehead. I mean, all of these are questions which we have to ask sooner or later. But what is important in respect of Jamaica is that the whole idea of the CCJ emanated from a meeting over in Jamaica way, way back. And yet still, Jamaica, we have to understand too, was the first one to break away from the Federation, which may have taken us somewhere today. And as my favorite hero of a prime minister, Eric Williams in Trinidad says, I am now going because 1 from 10 leaves 0. So in other words, Federation is done, and that basically is what happened and broke it up. We have a CARICOM organization. We also have OECS, which deals with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States within the CARICOM. And notwithstanding those two organizations, we are still far apart in respect of our political and economic development. The kind of unity and cooperation that was expected by those leaders who were inspired to form those organizations, unfortunately, it has not borne fruit. And my generation does not seem to be doing it, and I'm hoping that the new generation of you students will take up that mantle.
Tonian said that she wants to speak, but I want to hear from Mr. Bell Nevis as well. But Tonian and I have had heated discussions about this very same topic. Tonian has once questioned my Jamaican citizenship as to whether or not I am in fact a Jamaican, because I'll say it first, Jamaica should never have left the Federation. I don't think we should have. But that's just me. Tony?
Buster.
I just wanted to say something very briefly. Whereas I understand that, especially for Jamaica, we had legislative issues or constitutional issues that prevented us from acceding to the CCJ. But I'd like us to consider the figurative nature of or still acceding to the Privy Council versus the CCJ in terms of how we as a people, not necessarily just Jamaican people, but Caribbean people, we speak so very frequently to our decolonization and developing and creating our own jurisprudence, etc. Yet, figuratively speaking, it almost seems as if the court to which we accede is indicative of our actual willingness to depart from our old ways. So, for example, we look to the mandatory death penalty. No, it's not necessarily an issue in Jamaica, but depending on how the courts look at it, the Privy Council may have a different standpoint. The CCJ might say, well, I know that's what your laws say, but that's not okay as it relates to human rights. So they may have a bit more of a liberal approach to different circumstances versus the Privy Council. What does that mean for us as a people if we consistently speak to how we want to develop, how we want to grow our jurisprudence, how we want to take care of our people, hypothetically speaking, yet still, we're still stuck in this, as you mentioned, draconian way of looking at our laws, at our court systems, etc. And I, as a lover of sociology, I'd also like to look at the social and historical aspect of it all. Is it that in a subtle and very sublime way, we still think that the heights of jurisprudence and the heights of legal minds still have to come from England? Or is it that we are actually practicing what we preach and account for the fact that we have many legal minds in the Caribbean that have paved ways, that have released jurisprudence, have decided cases that have been transformative for our region? As a matter of fact, we have persuasive judgments from each other, yet we can still not come to one conclusion as to which court we will accede to. That's it.
After so many years, it still irks me to know that our final Court of Appeal is not the Caribbean Court of Justice. It would have seemed to us when we were students here, when we used to have very heated debates about the future and what we were going to do, that it stood by dint of common sense and reason that the logical outcome of all this Caribbean training would be the CCJ. I can recall vividly, there was a judgment, a Privy Council judgment, it was a locus classicus on possession of ganja. And a part of the judgment stipulated, of the words, ganja, Lego, like wild beasts. And their lordships of the Judicial Committee wanted to know, why didn't the prosecution call Mr. Lego? I mean, and it's not funny. I feel very strongly about persons that are not of my persuasion and my culture, be it my final Court of Appeal. And the very Privy Council themselves has expressed on more than one occasion, why don't you do your own thing? So what do we want to do? For them to literally push us down that part of the house that we flush things down? Why can we not? Yes, it will not be an easy road. I agree with what has been said before, because one of the problems we have complained over the years that the 1962 Constitution was passed without the involvement of John Public. When I hear people talking about, well, we're going to have constitutional reform and we're going to have town hall meetings over an 18-month period, you got to be kidding me. If you want people to be involved, it takes more than a short time frame to get the will of the people decided. And that is my position.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Just quickly, sort of piggybacking here. The Privy Council, as you said, have really kicked the door on us, so to speak, but maybe reflective of West Indies cricket. analogies. I remember the captain of the West Indies saying that the disrespectful comments from the Australians really caused us to win that test match. So maybe that may be what is required. But Tony Ann sort of mentioned it as well, that there seems to be an underlying concept or an underlying notion from Caribbean people. And I don't blame them. I blame the lack of an enabling environment that does not provide the education so that they could see themselves within their country. So in many respects, they don't know that when countries like Kenya and Zimbabwe, among others, were becoming independent countries, they looked to Caribbean jurists to lead their judiciaries. And that many international tribunals around the world, upon their formation or in their formative years, looked to Caribbean jurists to be able to respond. Sir Vincent Flosack has also been part of the Privy Council, so to speak. So there seems to be a lack of awareness of self. And at times I'm not certain that the handwritten writing of the law can solve it, because we know that the writing of the law at times does not take away the underlying prejudices that people have of themselves. And therefore, I'm cognizant, and I tell my colleagues all the time, that when you ask them, all right, well, what is the law? And then they say, well, the law is the law. It's like typical police officers, that the law is the law because the law is the law. And all right, so why is the law that way? Well, it is the law. I think that there is a much deeper conversation that we need to have with ourselves within this region as to who we are. And what it is that we want for ourselves, and how do we frame an education pedagogy that reflects who we are and how it is that we want to develop our respective countries. And I think the CCJ has to be part and parcel of that understanding of people, because it's not just a sitting because we need judgment from a court. It's a sitting because the law must be reflective, or the judgment of the law must be isolated, yes, independent, but it must not be tone deaf to the realities of people within the region. I think that, for me, is the important point.
Well, with that being said, I think one of the key takeaways that we can, garner from this discussion is that, as both Mr. Belnibs and Mr. Simon stated, I guess we are the future. Yay!
Yes.
We have the capacity to initiate this change. Raheem has stated that he sees this issue of identity of self. I can imagine that we, as budding law students, can be a part of that change to properly gain a better understanding of who we are, where we've come from, and where we are now. And of course, I have to give thanks to the faculty for facilitating this environment to actually get to know our culture, to get to know ourselves, and to actually understand the law. I feel like without UWI, we would not even have the capacity to question, to embark upon questions like this. And I'm so glad that right now, the graduating class of 1973 can see that their legacy is, of course, still standing strong. We still read the textbooks that you read, although we may have to go to the library, and most of us are used to searching for stuff online. It's something that will continue, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to embark on this discussion. I thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I think the students should be commended for the high level of scholarship. And Sir David and others, we want to confirm that there's still a high level of scholarship here in the faculty. The students are doing well. They're doing exceptionally well. and we're pleased to see that. Let me take a little bit of local privilege here, if I may say so. I see Madam Justice Margaret Reefer here. I also see Jacqueline Cornelius, Justice Cornelius as well, who's well known to this faculty. I also see the Clerk of Parliament, Mr. Pedro Eastman. I think I see somewhere in the back as well Justice Woods. Elwood Watts, whom I haven't seen now in probably 20 years. Haven't seen you in quite a while. We welcomed you a little bit earlier, but we're happy to see you, and please do not be strangers to this faculty. This is your, yeah? Oh, Justice Birch is also here. Oh yes, good. I didn't look up to see everyone. We welcome you here, and feel free to be back here at the faculty. At this time, I want to invite the principal one last time, Professor R. Clive Landis, as well as Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, for the unveiling of the plaque. I'll escort you over. This plaque is in honor of the class of 1973. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. We've come to the end of this part of our program, and I invite Ms. Carla Ali, one of our lecturers, to do the vote of thanks, after which I'll come back to give some guidance as to the next stage of our proceedings.
Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Erskine Burke, Her Excellency, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor R. Clive Landis, Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore, Sir David Simmons, former Chief Justice and current Chair of the Law Reform Commission, Campus Registrar, Mr. Rommel Carter, Campus Bursar, Ms. Lisa Aline, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, other deans and heads of department, the distinguished members of the 1973 graduating class, members of the head table, members of Parliament and the Diplomatic Corps, other executives, members of senior management, staff and students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Carla Ali, and I'm a lecturer in the Faculty of Law. And this afternoon, I have the distinguished pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks. On behalf of the Faculty of Law of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, I extend heartfelt gratitude to the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the campus, Professor R. Clive Landis, for hosting this auspicious occasion. To Mr. George Bell-Navis, attorney at law and member of the 1973 graduating class, thank you for acting as the intermediary between the graduating class and the faculty, and for your immeasurable assistance in the execution of this event. To Mr. Malcolm Adderley and Mr. Justin Simon, thank you for the walk down memory lane, for the insights shared with our students, for the reminder to us lecturers to teach our students to fish, and for the call to action issued to our students. To Mr. Simon, Mr. Belnavis, Timothy, Charlie, Tonian, and Rahim, thank you for the riveting discussion. And as a citizen of the seat of the CCJ, we continue to fight. To Mr. Peter Lewis, Temporary Assistant Registrar, Technical Coordinator, Ms. Shireen Cumberbatch, Administrative Assistant, Ms. Yvette Tull, Chief Usher, the University Ushers, and the staff of the Office of the Campus Registrar, we are forever indebted to you for your invaluable support in the coordination of today's activities. To the Office of the Campus Principal, Ms. Lisa Aline, Campus Bursar, Ms. Phyllis Tate, the Chief Protocol Officer, Mr. Edwin Adams, Mr. Arthur Springer and the officers of Campus Security, Mr. Kenneth Aline and the personnel of the Maintenance Department, Mrs. Carla Springer Hunt, manager of the Errol Barrow Center, and Mrs. Andrea Lewis and the staff of the Office of Institutional Planning and Infrastructural Services of the University, thank you for your guidance, diligence, and support towards the hosting of this event. To Mr. Chelston Lovell and the officers of the Office of Marketing and Communications, and Ms. Janet Carew and the staff of UWITV, thank you for your services and contributions towards the remembrance of today. To Mr. Medford and Medford's Craft World, thank you for creating the beautiful plaque to mark this occasion. It is a true representation of the solid foundation on which our faculty's story is built. To Mr. Andre Field, Ms. Chantal Graham, and Ms. Dawn Goddard of Fieldtech Staging Solutions, thank you for facilitating our requests for infrastructural support, especially within the tight time frame. To LaShawn Cox of Catering with Lanique, thank you for providing the scrumptious meal of which we are about to partake. Sincere appreciation must also be expressed for the gracious contributions provided by our sponsors this evening: the Campus Mart, the Barbados Bar Association, Guardsman Barbados Limited, Haridial Soda and Associates, and the Corporators General Insurance Company Limited. To Ms. Jadine Thomas, lecturer in the Faculty of Law, and the members of the Reunion Celebration Organizing Committee, thank you for your continued dedication and timeless hours spent to ensuring the success of today's celebration. To the Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Erskine Burke, thank you for your stewardship of this afternoon's events. To Mr. Kimani Jilks, law student, thank you for the soulful rendition of the timeless classics. To Dr. Antonius Hippolyte, the Interim Dean of the Faculty of Law, Ms. Lorna Payne, Administrative Assistant of the Faculty, the members of the ATS staff of the faculty, Mr. Timothy Roper, President of the Law Society, the members of the Executive of the Law Society, my fellow lecturers, ancillary staff and students of the faculty, thank you all for your unwavering support in the execution of the faculty's events, a key ingredient to the success of these events. Finally, and by no means least, to the originals, the inaugural graduating class of the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Law, Cave Hill Campus, thank you for looking back. Thank you for remembering your past. And thank you for treasuring your history. For were it not for your desire to experience these nostalgic moments, today's activities would not have been possible. A sincere thank you to each graduate for your sterling contribution to the law, life, and legacy of the Commonwealth Caribbean and beyond. Each of you has graciously paved a steady and reputable path for those to come. For that, we sincerely thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for gracing us with your presence. Have a good afternoon.
That brings this part of the proceedings to an end. we invite the class of 1970.